evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself today. I ain't gonna lie. More on that in just a second. My man Barry Grant Jr. is going to be joining the show in about 15 minutes. You guys are not going to want to miss that. Also, later at the end of the show, I'm going to make my predictions for the conference finals East and West, as well as Drew Brees. Is he coming back to the NFL? If he is, I must say, that would be a big mistake. Of course, I'll get to that later in the show, as well as Giannis, the defending champion Bucks, falling at the hands of the Boston Celtics. What a series that was. And again, I will lead the show with that stunning events, or the stunning events that happened in the second Game 7 in Phoenix, Arizona. But before I even get into that, and I will, start the show with that. Y'all know what time it is right now.
Walk that trick. Walk that trick. Walk that trick. Walk that trick.
Whoop it.
Walk that trick. Walk that trick.
Hey.
Walk that trick. Walk that trick.
That's what I'm talking about. We whooped that trick in Game 6. Game 6, Klay. You know how to rep the man, the myth, the legend. Game 6, Klay Thompson. I'll save that for later in the show. But let me start with Game 7 between the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks in what was not stunning in the outcome, in that Dallas won the game, because this was a series that I did have going 7 games. But the fact that it was over, and it seemed like the first 5 to 6, I mean, really halfway through the first quarter, that didn't even look like the same basketball team when you think about it. So, when I think about, let me take these glasses off for just a second. When I think about Phoenix, and this was my concern about the Phoenix Suns going into Game 7, or a possible Game 7, is, man, would they be feeling the heat? They'd be feeling that heat, man, because when you think about best record in the National Basketball Association, 64 wins, that is a franchise record. When you think about having home court throughout the entire playoffs, when you think about the fact that they won the NBA regular season by 8 games, second place was the Memphis Grizzlies. They won 56 games. First place Phoenix won 64 games. When you think about Chris Paul, once again an all-star this year. Monty Williams, Coach of the Year. Devin Booker is a guy who I said would be third. You heard that right, third in my MVP voting, behind Giannis and Joel Embiid. A bench, a group of big men, starting with DeAndre Ayton, JaVale McGee, Bismack Biyombo, who really showed up all season. And you get blown out by 33 at home in a Game 7 with your season on the line, with championship expectations since day 1 in the second round. These Phoenix Suns, as a matter of fact, I checked this, they are the first team in the NBA to have the best record and not make it to the conference finals since the 2007 Dallas Mavericks, who lost to we believe, Golden State Warriors. Of course, 8 seed on 1 seed. Dallas lost the first round, but I think it's good for the Dallas Mavericks. They sort of got themselves off the hook, if you will, in that they now they're not the last team to not make the conference finals after having the NBA's best record. But, and I'll get to Luka in just a second, but I have to start with Phoenix, because what we know in Game 7s, role players are virtually irrelevant, okay? Grant Williams games don't happen a ton. Not in Game 7. In closeout games, sure. We've seen it in a number of closeout games. Not Game 7. It's about the superstars. Okay, the greatest moments in NBA history in Game 7s have been made by superstars. So with that said, I see the fact that you have Chris Paul and you got Devin Booker. You got 2-on-1 essentially. Because obviously Dallas is the second best player, whether you think it's Brunson, whether you think it's Spencer Dinwiddie. At times off the bench, Bertans can get hot from three-point range. Dorian Finney-Smith had a great Game 4 in the series. He can be hot and cold at times. But second place is like a distant second from Luka. We know that. Now, Dallas is a great basketball team, but second place, second best player on the team is a distant second from Luka. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, you lose a 2-0 lead in the finals last year against the Milwaukee Bucks. You come into the season with championship-level aspirations, and in the regular season, boy, did you deliver. injury after injury, yet best record in basketball by a wide margin. If I'm not mistaken, I think they clinched the 1 seed before the end of March. They clinched the best record in the NBA before the end of, I think it was like with a week left in the regular season. John Justice Suns in 4, talking about what the fans were chanting at the Footprint Center in Phoenix after game 2. Well, it's Mavs in 7, as a matter of fact. But when we think about the superstars, you got to show up. And you know me, and I went off on James Harden after his Game 6 disaster, yet another Game 6/Game 7 disaster for one James Harden. So you know me, I got to keep it consistent. I got to, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say, right? So I got to be consistent. Devin Booker was bad. Okay, we understand that. You look at Devin Booker's stats the other night, 3 for 14, did not make a three, scored 11 points. That's unacceptable for a guy who once scored 70 in a game one time. Back in 2017, I believe it was his second year in the NBA at that point. Devin Booker is the best player in the Suns. But the most valuable player on the Suns, you hear me talk about the V word valuable a lot, is Chris Paul. He finished with 9 points. Basically, 2 of them, if you want to call them meaningful, be my guest. He had 2 points after 3 quarters. Okay, he came in the fourth quarter when the Suns are down 40 and hit all 3 shots, which of course meant literally nothing because, again, they are down 40. So essentially, Chris Paul scored 2 points. And my next guest, who will be here in about 8 minutes, Barry Grant Jr. of the All Even podcast, he's made, he's called him Black Cat Chris, right? Because it's always some bad luck happens with Chris Paul, whether it's his fault, whether it's injuries, whether it's whatever. Well, I can't fight him on that point today. Y'all know I'm a Chris Paul fan. Y'all know I think he has been slandered far too much for what he does or doesn't do at times in the postseason. Folks, Chris Paul, the door on him winning a title has shut. The door on him becoming possibly one of the 5 greatest point guards to ever play this game has shut. It's over. Because we get, not having a title and all that. You say, well, Stockton. At least Stockton's got the all-time assist and steals record. Magic Johnson is, I talk about what makes a player great, what makes an athlete great is not just their abilities, but how many great moments. Moments plural. You can't just have one. You got to have multiple moments. Do you have? Magic Johnson's got the moments, and Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas and Oscar Robertson. Certainly one, the 4 greatest point guards to ever play this game. How many moments does Chris Paul have? A Game 7 game-winning shot in 2015 against the Spurs. That's it. And what we call that iconic? Clutch. No question. Iconic? Y'all heard Patrick Beverley this morning on ESPN. He did not hold back on one CP3. And John Johnson's terrible performance by the whole team. It was. And one more point I want to make about DeAndre Ayton. I am never one to judge how somebody handles not getting paid. If they hold out, that's their business. If they play, that's their business. I've always, you want to play, fine. Prove yourself. Bet on yourself, if you will. If you don't want to play, you want to hold out, I get that too. I get both perspectives of it. But if you're DeAndre Ayton, you don't get your money in the offseason, you decide to play. Okay, great. Played well this regular season. At times had some solid moments in the postseason, certainly against the New Orleans Pelicans. But in a Game 7, you're benched in the fourth quarter. Reportedly, according to Dave McMenamin of ESPN, who was at the game, DeAndre Ayton and the head coach, Monty Williams, and we know Monty is as cool, calm, collected a coach as there is in sports. Reportedly, Coach Monty Williams, DeAndre Ayton had to be held back from one another. DeAndre Ayton is the classic example of a great player who has no motor, has no drive, has no desire. That's the reality of the situation. My man Ryan Flowers, shout out to him, Clutch Sports Talk. He says it's a good thing the Suns lost. They need to make some big decisions. I don't think Booker is a legit number one guy. Move off of Ayton and look for another scorer. And that's the thing. We think about the best bigs in this league. We know DeAndre Ayton certainly has the ability. The guy wouldn't have been drafted number one overall in 2018 out of Arizona over Luka and over Trae Young had that not been the case. He got 4 rebounds last night. He got DeAndre Ayton, 7-footer, 4 rebounds. What am I supposed to do with that? If you're going to bet on yourself, buddy, you got to go all in. No ifs, ands, or buts. You got to go all in. And John just suggests Ayton's gone. Probably. I would almost be shocked after how the end of the season played out, how the contract negotiations fell through. I'd be really shocked if DeAndre Ayton is a Phoenix Sun next season. So right now, the Suns are really in quicksand. They are. You got a disgruntled big man who does not play well when his best is called upon. You've got a point guard who's 37 years old. Speaking of that 37-year-old point guard, he turned 37 during this series. I can't explain it. Chris Paul in these playoffs, before turning 37 and then after turning 37, the stats are staggering. Before turning 37, Chris Paul was averaging 22 points and 10 assists a game and only 1.6 turnovers. Since turning 37, 9 points, 6 assists, 3.6 turnovers. So 2 more turnovers, 13 fewer points, and 4 less assists. What? What are we doing? John just said teams will be lining up to sign DeAndre. And I think that'll be the case. I mean, I think when you look at certainly length, defensive presence, but man, I mean, got outplayed by Dwight Powell last night. Dwight Powell. Nice player. Dwight Powell's never been mistaken for a possible number one overall pick type of talent ever. Certainly in the NBA. Probably even beforehand. Ryan says, I would not pay Booker max money either. Here's the thing about Devin Booker. I think if you're the Suns, you have to keep Book. Because what is he? 25, 26 years old? So here's the thing. Devin Booker's not Jason Tatum. Devin Booker cannot be the best player in a championship team. Jason Tatum can. I think Jason Tatum's proving that throughout these playoffs. Book's not that. And so what you have to come to the realization of is, can we get ourselves a 1 to pair with Devin Booker? Whether it's a great wing, whether it's, a great big, you want to place DeAndre Ayton with a great big, a star point guard. I'm not sure what the solutions are at this point with the Phoenix Suns. They're they're stuck in quicksand. You run it back, okay, you win 55 plus games, then what? Mr. CP3 is not getting any younger now. Devin Booker is not going to turn into a 1 in one offseason. DeAndre Ayton's probably not going to be there. Suns missed their window. And John just says, can't get rebounds if they not missing, LOL. That's true. But, even Memphis, and I'm going to talk about Memphis and Golden State, later in the show. Even Memphis, when they were getting hot, when Desmond Bane was getting into rhythm and all that, Kevon Looney had 11 rebounds in the first quarter. Draymond Green, I believe, had 15 rebounds for the game. So keep it. I mean, you talk about John, the Mavs not missing. Suns missed a lot. 27 points at half. What are we doing? He had plenty of opportunities to grab a couple offensive boards. So, I mean, there was plenty of missed shots. So, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is Dallas' superstar, was more ready for the moment than Phoenix's 2 stars. Chris Paul's not a superstar. Neither is Devin Booker. They're both stars. They're both all-star level players. We knew this. but the pressure was too much. It was a classic situation, man. The pressure was just too much. So, it's going to be interesting to see where Phoenix goes from here. I think they're going to have to make some aggressive moves this offseason. Obviously, Monty Williams comes back, and I think Devin Booker comes back. Those are the only sure things in my view. We'll see. But Luka Doncic, man, his numbers in elimination games are ridiculous. He's played 5 of them. He's averaging like almost 40. It's unbelievable. You can't tell me the Suns didn't know that. So with that said, in what was an abysmal Game 7, I know my next guest was absolutely chomping at the bit to have a word on one, especially CP3. Would you please welcome back to Carving It Up Live? It is Barry Grant Jr. on Carving It Up Live. Hold on. He's not ready yet. My bad, guys. Hold on. Whoops. Apparently, Barry cannot hear me. We'll see if we can get this issue resolved later on in the show. My bad, Barry. Let me know at some point. Just give me a thumbs up once you're ready to go. But until then, until we can find a way to get Barry on, I think I can't hear you, my man. I think we'll have to get some things resolved. Let's see. Let's try and bring Barry on and see if we can hear him. Let's try this one more time. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So if you can hear me, then we're good.
I can hear you. Okay, so Barry Grant Jr. is on Carving It Up Live, host of the All Even podcast. How you doing?
I mean, a little under the weather right now, but it's all right.
I understand, man. So, CP3. Basically 2 quote unquote meaningful points the other night. What happened?
What always happens with Chris Paul in the playoffs just kind of goes away. I mean, here's the thing. Is it all on him? No. But it's very, very strange or interesting that every time there's a playoff failure, Chris Paul is in the middle of it. Every time there's a playoff collapse, Chris Paul is in the middle of it. And the reason why it's news to us, or we make a big deal out of it, is because all of his teams have a certain character to them. They're probably one of the most hated teams in the league, or if not the most hated team in the league. It's the way he carries himself. He's a great leader. He brings that win now mentality. But the thing is, people want to see them lose, and they always seem to choke when the lights are the brightest. It happens all the time. It happened in New Orleans. It happened with the Clippers. It happened in Houston. It now happened here. You can't really call OKC a choke because they actually overachieved and did something special that nobody believed that they could do. So that's the only pass that I give him. But everything else is pretty spot on. And the thing is, the part that makes me laugh about this whole Chris Paul thing is that when his teams are killing and they're the best team in the league, all you hear is, "Oh, Chris Paul, top 5 point guard of all time. He's so great." You always hear that. But when the playoff failures come, that is not as loud as the truth. That's what bothers me, is that nobody wants to talk about these failures. And there's a lot of them. But they always want to talk about when he's at his apex. Oh, top 5. Come on. Say, like Patrick Beverly said something today that was very paramount.
I was wondering what your thoughts were on, because I know you're not a huge Pat Bev fan either, but I was wondering what you thought about what he said.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's the biggest cheerleader I know in the NBA, but is he wrong? You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's unfortunate. Listen, Chris Paul is 37 years old. He's getting older. Father time waits for no man. It's undefeated. So, at some point he's going to slow down. At some point, Chris Paul is not going to be effective anymore. And at some point, people have to start using Chris Paul accordingly. You can't play him 34 minutes anymore. Maybe you need to start playing him 25. Maybe you need to start having a real quality borderline 6-man all-star guy that's behind him, so there's no drop-off in production. Maybe you get more production off the bench with a Chris Paul. Not saying that he can't play anymore, but you need more insurance for him. And what they had in Phoenix wasn't enough. Devin Booker has shown that he's a very good player, but he's not a number one. DeAndre Ayton has shown that he is not that guy. But here's the problem that Phoenix has. What do? They can't do anything. There's nothing they can do. They have to offer DeAndre Ayton whatever he wants. They have to keep Chris Paul. They have to keep Devin Booker because it's Phoenix. They're not getting free agents. They're not getting anybody to sign there. They can go through the draft. They can probably get some guys via trade, but their options are very, very limited.
No, it is. And that was sort of my point at the start of the show is they're sort of in quicksand because Devin Booker's coming back. That's sort of the only sure thing. And Chris Paul is likely coming back as well. But what version of Chris Paul are we going to get?
Right.
Because, again, I read off the stats. Since he turned 37, I'm not sure what the heck happened.
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton is likely gone after how this season played out with the contract negotiations in Game 7 getting benched.
And did you hear about Dame talking about why would you want to partner up with that? Has he shown you anything to make you want to partner up with that? What is DeAndre Ayton going to give you if you put him in Portland?
It's Yusuf Nurkic all over again, really, if you think about it. I mean, they're very similar players.
Might be worse.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you feel like you're not getting what you feel like you should from those two. We've got a few comments right here. Josh said, "How about Booker and Luka together? They team up. There's no way on earth that's going to happen. That would be electric, though." Let's see. My man Ryan says CP3 is a buster.
I can't argue with that, man. I can't argue with that, Ryan.
No, he says never liked him. He's one of those guys that wants you to think he's a good guy, but he's dirty. He is a dirty player. I mean, let's be real about it. He's got a history of some cheap shots, even in this past right against the Pelicans for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
And John just says Pat Bev's wear teams to the beach, not trusting him. And Ryan says Bev is petty. He doesn't have the right to talk about CP3 like that, even though I don't care for CP3. Yeah, I heard Matt Barnes say that it was borderline disrespectful what he said about Chris. Did he cross the line? Maybe, maybe not. But
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though, about Pat Bev is that this is who he is.
Right.
He's a guy that he's a self-made guy. He had to fight and scratch and claw to get into the NBA. So, he is what he is. And honestly, you got two trolls and two irritants that don't like each other. So they kind of cancel each other out. Chris Paul is an irritant. Chris Paul does things on the court that makes you so angry because he flops a lot. He throws his body around. Like it's annoying to watch. And I think it's fair game, honestly. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. And Ryan says Dame is in a sunken place. Man, just get out of Portland, Dame. Just get out of Portland, Dame. Come on. Nothing against Portland, but man, you got to play in a contender at some point, my guy. John says Pat Bev is going to be great TV on TV when his NBA career is over. That is a fact. That is a fact. That was like today was like a tryout. Like he's gonna
take what's his name? Kendrick Perkins' spot.
Please take Kendrick Perkins' spot, please. At least he respects the Warriors, which we'll get into in a second. So speaking of those Golden State Warriors, it's been a minute since we've been able to talk about those guys. They are on to the Western Conference Finals for the sixth time in the previous 8 seasons after beating the Grizzlies in 6 games. What was sort of your takeaway, not necessarily just from Game 6, but from the series as a whole? And do you think Golden State is the favorite to win this Western Conference Finals over Dallas?
What I took away from that Grizzlies series is that it was very close. It was a series that any slight mistake or injury or mishap could be able to alter the series. And that's what we saw in regards to the Grizzlies. John Morant going down, they battled in Game 5 and Game 6, but, they didn't have enough. So do they have enough to win? I mean, listen, what we're seeing out of Dallas right now, do we think that Dallas would have been able to come back with Phoenix? I didn't think so. So we don't know what this Dallas team is. We know what the Golden State Warriors are. We understand that they're a veteran team. They're a championship team. They still have their big 3 from the championship years. They know what it's like to be in this spot. They have Steve Kerr. So this is not nothing new to them. I want to see how Jordan Poole and those kids play because this stage is new to them, sort of. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, it's I think they're the favorites, honestly. So we'll see. But being the favorites right now in the Western Conference really doesn't mean anything because anybody that's the favorite looks like they're going down. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. I think it's gonna be a competitive series. I think Luka is gonna give them fits. I think Jalen Brunson is gonna give them fits. So we'll see, man. It's gonna be a fun series. I think we can expect another 6 or 7.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, I think what everybody, I heard Draymond talk about this on his podcast, is I don't think any single unit in the NBA has improved more than Dallas's defense.
Agreed.
In the last couple of years, it was.
And shouts to Jason Kidd for that.
Absolutely. I mean, he did, nothing against Rick Carlisle, but, Jason Kidd steps in and, I believe they finished top 5 in defensive efficiency, which, again, all the credit goes to the head coach. It feels like he's even gotten Luka to a certain degree to buy into the defensive end of the floor. He's not going to be somebody who's just going to stay with the best player, but sort of almost like a James Harden in a sort of way where he's sort of playing, a lot of help defense, a lot of zone. For me, for Golden State, it's a matter of not necessarily not letting Luka get to the lane, but almost playing him similar to how they played Ja in the first 3 games, where don't let Ja get to his left, because when he gets to his left, he's got you beat.
Right.
Where it's crazy to say, but give Luka the 3. Play off of him a little bit, because he's not like Ja, where it's like, he gets a full head of steam and you're beat. He plays at his own speed. A lot of these European players, Jokic, plays at their own speed. So I think they're going to start Wiggins on him and probably finish with Draymond. Late in games, they don't want Draymond to get into foul trouble. And then probably put Steph on Brunson, Klay and Finney-Smith, and so on and so forth. It's definitely going to be a competitive series. I think, to me, what the shock of the series was, and obviously I picked the Warriors to win, but to me, what the shock of the series is that the team that led the NBA in rebounding got out-rebounded in 5 of the 6 games, and then Kevon Looney grabs 22 in Game 6, and I believe the Warriors had 70 as a team in that decisive game at the Chase Center. So that sort of caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, this playoff period has just been a lot of surprises, a lot of things that's just been like, really? Okay, that just happened. Okay, that just happened. All right, well, we're gonna see how it continues to unfold. But like you said, I mean, the Warriors are the favorites. As much as I hate to admit it, it makes my stomach turn to say that. But they're the favorites, and I'm telling you right now, Bryson, I'll let it be known on your show, because I'm gonna let it be known on my show as well. If there's a Warriors Celtics NBA final, I'm not watching. I will not be watching. I'm gonna just watch the highlights. I'll get your show and I'll know exactly what's going on. I can't cover that. Like there's nothing in me that can be able to cover that show. I can't do that.
But listen to me here. I know you hate the Warriors. I know that it's the Lakers-Warriors rivalry. But first of all, Lakers-Warriors is not even the same ballpark as Lakers-Celtics in terms of a rivalry.
Right. Don't you say it. Don't you say it. Don't you even say it.
Just wait.
I am not rooting for the Golden State Warriors against the Celtics. I'm not doing it. No.
You don't have to root. Just listen. You don't have to root for the Warriors. The Lakers and the Celtics, as everybody knows, got 17 titles. Right. You really want the Boston Celtics to jump y'all?
You know what this is going to feel like if this happens?
What's that?
2009 Yankees and Phillies. That's what it feels like to me. That's what it feels like to me. Who do you root for? I hate both teams.
It's true.
So,
listen, your Mets are kicking butt right now. Shout out to them. Ryan says Golden State Warriors, one word, depth. And that's the thing that's been so shocking is, I mean, they've had a lot of dudes go down. You talking about Wiseman, Iguodala, Gary Payton, and Otto Porter Jr. both go down this round, and yet you have multiple guys step up. Kuminga, guys like that. Even Toscano Anderson played a few minutes. Damian Lee, who I didn't think would play much at all in this playoff run, rebounded the basketball really well. And so, it kind of goes to the old cliche in Golden State, strength in numbers. And that's, they kind of went away from that once KD got there, because they were really top heavy because of that. But credit them for taking advantage. Ryan says Curry hasn't been shooting threes great lately, but other guys have stepped up. Golden State has enough guys to throw at Luka and speed up the game on Dallas. Yeah, I agree. I think, Steph is sort of, in terms of his percentage, being in a little slump. But Steph, if I'm not mistaken, I think is the leading scorer in the playoffs in the fourth quarter. So listen, money's
Which
on
is
the
good.
line.
Yeah,
Who's
which is good.
got the best player?
Right.
That's ultimately what these playoff games come down to.
Exactly. Who can get you a bucket? And you got two guys with Luka, you got Klay, you got Steph. This is gonna be a series of big shots. I'm telling you, it's gonna be interesting to watch, man.
Game 6, Klay, Barry.
I can't say
I
nothing.
called it.
I am not gonna say a word right now. I have no leg to stand on. So
None.
Continue.
Hey, you know what? I have no leg to stand on a black cat, Chris. So you got me there. You got me there. Let's see. John just says Dallas is playing with house money.
That's right.
I think I would say less so in this series than the next one, because you're sort of starting to hear this narrative like, is this Luka run like LeBron's 07 run? And there are some similarities to that.
I see that. I can see that.
Because that Cavs team was great defensively, but the second best player, whoever it was, Mo Williams or what, I'm not sure if Mo was on that team, but who the second best player is, LeBron. It's a massive gap. Same with
Mo
Dallas.
was there. Yeah, Mo was there.
Okay, yeah, because I think he was an all-star a few years later.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, and I better you better stop, Ryan Flowers. Klay Thompson has no swagger. He's got all kinds of swagger with the headband and holding up 6 fingers. You better stop that, Flowers.
Yeah, he does look a little doofy with that headband, though. You gotta tell the truth.
I kind of like it. I kind of like it. It's a new look.
You was such a Warriors fan. I swear, I can't stand you. I really can't.
Hey, listen, man. We win the Western Conference Finals. I may have to bring out a headband.
Hey, listen, man. If it makes you guys win, go ahead and do it. I just want to say this as a shout to my man Jason Kidd, though.
Okay.
I remember when he was in Milwaukee, how bad people trashed that man about he's a terrible coach, about he can't coach, he this and that. If it wasn't for Jason Kidd, there would be no Giannis of what you see now. Jason Kidd was the visionary to look at Giannis and say, I'm putting you in my point guard position because you're able to handle that position at that size and that strength and that agility. So Jason Kidd doesn't get enough credit for what he does, the visionary that he is. The fact that he's a Hall of Famer, he's a top 5 point guard all time, in my opinion. Not Chris Paul, Jason Kidd. And, you're just seeing that now. He has Luka that can be able to share that type of vision, that coach on the floor that he's always wanted. And he's in Dallas doing it. He was a player for Dallas. He won a championship with Dallas. He came back and did that. Now he's a head coach on the precipice of possibly getting to an NBA Finals as a head coach with Dallas. It's a great story, and I'm just happy that he found vindication. And everybody now, you listen to every, well, Jason Kidd's doing a great job. Yeah. I wonder how that happened. Coaches can learn too, just like players can develop. Coaches can develop too.
And that's the thing, as I always say, and John always gets in the comments with me about this, that, as dead spot on as I was about the Lakers, I was equally as wrong about Jason Kidd coming to Dallas. I was not a fan of the hire to begin with because of the, how Brooklyn played out, how Milwaukee played out. But listen, I give credit where credit's due. He's done a phenomenal job. Again, getting that team to buy in the defensive end of the floor, getting Luka as well. This, it's, I hope I don't sound sacrilegious here, although he has, not sounded like the smartest dude in the world recently. It's a little bit similar to how Phil Jackson got Michael Jordan to buy into, hey, get other dudes involved. Now, some of that was the triangle offense, but where Luka now has this mindset of, okay, I can still get my 30 to 35, but Brunson can get me 20 and 8. Denwey can give you 30 like last night off the bench, kicking out to the 3-point shooters when guys come in on help. And I have a wide open guy in the corner. And speaking of a player who did that a lot in a game 7 yesterday is Jason Tatum in the Celtics and Bucks game 7. There's a lot of layers to that. Before I get to Boston, let's start with Milwaukee. So you weren't, I think, as high on this Giannis is the best player on the world thing as I was, as a lot of people was. Here's my takeaway, and I'll give you the floor. I think when you look at Giannis as a player, we're not viewing him in the same prism as, say, LeBron in his prime. Certainly I wasn't, because LeBron had one of the greatest and longest primes in the history of sports. My takeaway is that if Giannis doesn't play at an all-time supreme level, which the guy averaged 30 and 12 in the series. I mean, he showed up. This is a sweep. the better team at the end of the day won the series.
Right.
Drew Holiday got called. I mean, look, when you go 4 for 33 from the 3-point line and Boston goes 22 for 53 on the road, you've got no chance.
Game over right there.
Yeah, that's it. And then the game fell over midway through the third quarter once Boston started raining in those threes. But again, before we talk about the Celtics, talk about Giannis and sort of how has your view changed on him any after this series as opposed to, say, maybe last year's finals?
Oh no, my opinion hasn't changed on Giannis. I think Giannis is a great player. I think he's special talent. I mean, he's literally a genetic freak, just like LeBron James is a genetic freak. The only difference is that LeBron James, I've never seen a guy impact the basketball court the way LeBron James has. I don't know if we'll ever see that again in regards to him being able to dictate pace, what happens, who gets open, what guys offensively on the other end are gonna get their shots off. He was just able to manipulate an entire basketball game. Giannis doesn't have that ability. Giannis needs other guys to be able to do certain things to get his skill set off. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not taking away from Giannis. It's just that it's not you. It's not a lot of people out there, but there's this small community of people, even that people who work for the NBA and all these other people that claim that they're analysts. They tend to want to say that he's in the same breath as guys like MJ and LeBron. No. Like I'm telling you, I hate prisoner of the moment analysts. I'm sick of them. And I call them out all the time because they don't know what they're talking about. Listen, like I said on my show, I think it was last week, I know that there's NBA voters out there that have podcasts that know nothing about basketball. Nothing. And they have a vote for who is the MVP. You have people on TV that know nothing about basketball, but they're getting paid to talk about basketball. This is the problem that we're having. And people who are very influenced by those people because they're on TV, because they have positions of power, they're not going to listen to people like me and you. They're going to listen to the idiots that's on ESPN, or they're going to listen to the idiots that's on Fox or whatever station it is, because they're on TV. Doesn't mean that they know more than you do.
Well, I think the thing at the end of the day, and why I had Giannis at number one, and look, I will say this: after the All-Star game, I said that the paths would clear, that the Red Sea would part for Steph Curry to become the league's best player.
You were just waiting for that day, aren't you?
Oh my!
You had your time in the sun. He's a 2-time MVP. What more do you want? What more do you want?
I'm just saying.
What more do you want?
Wait a minute, one more. I want championships, dang it. I want a finals MVP. Got robbed twice, Barry.
You got 3 of them. Okay, there's a lot of teams out there that don't even have one.
I said finals MVP. I said he should have 2 of them.
He's not gonna get one of those.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll see.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that when you play against LeBron James and get the MVP for guarding LeBron James, that's how you know how great he is. It's just the way it is.
That's what I'm saying. That's why he should have won in 2015. He should have won 2018. That's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there.
That's fair.
It is what it is. But, the thing with Giannis and why I had him at number one is I felt like there was not a player in the league currently that affected both ends of the floor like him. I felt like Kawhi sort of held that title for a while. I think the lower extremity injuries have really taken away a lot of Kawhi's explosiveness. Obviously, also you have the load management. You're talking about a guy's motor. The fact that he can drop 40 and 10 and we don't really blink speaks to how great of a player that Giannis is. Let's move on to Boston because, with Jason Tatum, I think he is firmly establishing himself, in my view, as a superstar player in this league. I think when you look at, obviously, we know about his ability to score. We've known that since the days, certainly you have, since the days at Duke. But I think it's similar to Luka. Ime Udoka, being able to get him to sort of buy into playmaking. He drops 46 in Game 6 to keep the Celtics alive, and he has a great first half yesterday. But again, sort of when the double teams come and the help comes, you've got Grant Williams open. You got Peyton Pritchard open, getting Jaylen Brown set up in good positions offensively. I think it really speaks to his maturity as a basketball player, just 5 years in. Talk about the Celtics and Jason Tatum and, where you view them in the title contention right now, being, among one of the final 4 teams left.
I think Jason Tatum is showing you what I've always known him to be, or I thought that he was going to become a professional NBA scorer. He's just one of those guys that you're going to look at the box score and say, okay, he had 49. It didn't even feel like he had 49 because that's the type of game that he has. He has such a smooth game offensively that it looks effortless to him. And his talent alone, if he can be able to unlock that other side of it, that is like, okay, let me trust my teammates. Let me not dribble so much. Let me see what's going on and let me read the court and let me get guys open. He's starting to put that together now. And if he can continue on that path, we're probably looking at Jason Tatum in a few years holding up an MVP trophy because he has that type of potential. In regards to Boston, though, I think that they're good. I am not a believer in Grant Williams knocking down threes consistently.
Hey, show some love to my man from Tennessee.
That's
show some
fine.
love to my man.
That's fine. You want to go rep him, that's all good. But
I agree with you, though.
I believe that they are going to run into a buzzsaw.
Really?
Miami is no joke.
They're not.
And I think Miami has the ability to expose what Boston doesn't do well. And Boston, as good as they are, they have an inability, in my opinion, to close. They can close against Milwaukee. I want to see how they're going to be able to close against a team that does not quit. Miami does not go, like, you can be up 12. They'll go on a 14-2 run. You'll be up 15. They'll go on a 17-2 run. That's the type of team that they are. So we're going to see how that affects their psyche, because when you kick a team and you see them get up and they get right back in your face and say, I'd like some more, please. It's like a boxer's mentality. Like when you're in front of somebody and you're hitting them with everything that you have and they don't even flinch. They don't struggle. They don't buckle. It's a mind warp, right? It's like, yo,
yeah, it is.
What is going on here? I just hit him with everything that I have. What else do I have? So that's what I want to see from Boston. I want to see them be able to come out. They know that wave is coming. How are they going to answer after that? That's how you're going to know if they're actually ready for the NBA Finals in the big stage.
Oh, definitely. And I think when you look at the only concerns that I have for Milwaukee, or I'm sorry, for Miami, and I'm going to make my conference finals prediction later in the show, is I feel like I get more from Boston's role players on a consistent basis than I get from Miami's. Now, the guys showed up in Game 6 in Philadelphia, guys like Oladipo and Hero and guys like that. And certainly we know what Jimmy Buckets gives you in the postseason.
Right.
At the end of the day, what it comes down to, we talked about Steph Curry, get a bucket, guys. Jimmy can do that, but I don't think at as high of a level as Jason Tatum. These are going to be knockout, physical. I think some low scoring games are about to come. So
two defensive coaches.
Absolutely. Two defensive coaches, two phenomenal defensive basketball teams. You're talking about length. You're talking about anticipation, quickness. You're going to see that all displayed in the series starting tomorrow night. So that's the only thing. I feel like Boston is a much better 3-point shooting team than Miami. Can the Heat take Boston out of that? Certainly they can. The question is how they do that. But listen, I think like you said, I think we're in for two phenomenal conference finals. Given what the four teams bring to the table that sort of not necessarily complement the other team, but weaknesses that they can expose.
Right.
And I feel like Boston today has more of an ability to expose Miami's weaknesses than vice versa.
Right.
That's sort of how I'm viewing this series. But listen, it's going to be a phenomenal, conference finals without a question. I'll tell you, I must say, once we get this title, you're required to come on Carving It Up. You do know that, right?
I don't remember that bet.
Well, we never made a bet, but I'm just we never made a bet.
So I am not obligated to come on this show. I will disappear. You're not gonna see me. You're not gonna hear me for about maybe a month. About a month.
Dang, you really take this stuff hard, don't you? What would be worse?
I'll be here.
Let me ask you one more question for you before you get out of here. What would be more painful? Because I guess the most painful thing is a Celtics championship. I would assume you being a Lakers fan, but what would be worse, a Warriors or a Clippers title?
Is that even a question? Clippers.
I was gonna say I think I know where you're going, but yeah,
Clippers. Listen, I don't hate the Warriors. Listen, they've put together a great organization, a great run. There's always organizations that come out of the ground and build and become something. I don't have a problem with the Golden State Warriors. It's not even you're a Golden State fan. There's a lot of the fans that I don't like. It's more fan bases that I hate more than teams.
Sure.
But the Clippers, I hate that entire organization. From the guy that hands out the popcorn to the concession to the people who snap the tickets or scan the ticket. Everybody, if you work for the Clippers, I don't like you. That's just the way it is. So I don't care. I don't want them winning any titles at all. At all.
That is deep.
Yeah.
That is really deep. I'll tell you, the Clippers are going to be a problem next year once Kawhi gets back. I'm just trying to tell you.
Problem, exactly. A problem to win. They're not winning anything. They're not winning anything because it's the Clippers, just like it's NBA Siberia and Sacramento. You don't have to worry about those places winning. It's just like Phoenix. Nobody cares about Phoenix. They lost, and nobody's talking about what does Phoenix do? What do they have to do now? It's Phoenix. No one cares. No one cares.
Let me tell you something. One more thing about my Warriors, and I'll let you go. Put some respect on Steve Kerr's name. Because that team is not – I love Mike Brown. Love the guy. I truly do. That team has not looked the same since Steve Kerr had to take his leave of absence for COVID.
Listen, Steve Kerr is the guy that leads the charge. They rely on him. They answer, his calls. He's a great motivator for that team. So I respect the Steve Kerr and your Warriors. It's fine. We'll see what happens next round. That's all I'm going to say. Because I'm going to be right here if they lose. And I'll be right here if they win too. I'm not going to run away from it, but I'll be right here if they lose.
That goes both ways, my friend. Barry Grant Jr., before you go, tell the people where they can find your show.
They can find it everywhere, man. They can find it, Spotify, Apple. It's on YouTube. Doing real good on YouTube right now. My new show has been delayed because there's a lot of flus and stuff going around in my household, so had to be taking care of the family. But once everything is cleared up, I'll be revealing that, and it's gonna be something. I'll tell you,
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Until next time, Barry Grant Jr., the All Even Podcast. See you, my man.
Yes, sir.
That was Barry Grant Jr. See, get this up. There we go. The All Even Podcast joining once again. Again, he makes great points about the Miami Heat, and that's something I think we saw, especially in the bubble, man. Those dudes and teams tend to take on the identity of their best player. Jimmy Butler could care less about what you think, what I think, what anybody on this planet thinks, right? We saw that, and it rubbed people the wrong way in Philly, in Minnesota, maybe at times in Chicago, but he shows up in Miami in a championship-level culture, you see what you get. So, but no, I've always been a huge fan of Jimmy Butler. Ryan Flowers talking about, we were talking about people that don't know basketball. He said pretty much everyone on ESPN. Save for a couple, I must say one of my favorite analysts, who has become one of my favorite analysts, my man JJ Redick. That dude, man, is, when you talk, his podcast too is phenomenal. When you hear the episode he did with Draymond Green, where they are breaking down, and Tim Legler, he did a great podcast with Tim Legler as well of ESPN. When you talk about guys that actually know the game, like those, Tim Legler and JJ Redick are like at the top of the list. Like those two are the absolute best. Just about everybody else at ESPN, nah. John just says, Grant Williams with the fire emoji. He was in Fuego last night. Absolutely. My guy out of the University of Tennessee, two-time? Yeah, I think so. Two-time SEC Player of the Year. Was always one of my favorite players when he was rocking the big orange and white. But man, he showed up. Tied Steph Curry and I think Marcus Morris for the most threes ever made in a Game 7. So listen, if when it comes to shooting and you are in the same company as one Wardell Stephen Curry the second, that's what he does. That's a good company to be in. John just says Miami are dogs. There's no question. He's got the dog emoji as well. Absolutely. Man, like I said, those dudes in Miami are freaking fearless. And again, they take on the identity of their best player. That's what great teams often do. Barry talked about too with CP3 and the Suns. They have a tendency to sort of fade away. It's not like epic failure, like the Clippers in 2020. I mean, who could forget the Clippers in 2020 collapse against the Denver Nuggets when not just they blew a 3-1 lead, but they had double-digit leads in all three games? It's never like this big epic failure with CP3 teams. And I love CP3. It's my guy. but they just fade away. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read this. This is the 5th time in his career that his team has blown a 2-0 lead. I can't hide from that. Like that can't happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That can't happen. If you are a guy who is vying to be one of the 5 greatest point guards of all time, can't happen. But listen, conference finals is gonna be fun. I'm gonna predict the conference finals later in the show. But let me shift. Only NFL topic of the day. In what has been a wild NFL offseason, it's sort of calmed down a little bit. We're now just sort of kicking back, chilling, watching Tom Brady ride bikes in New York with no helmet on. But and by the way, again, congrats to Tom Brady and that big deal with Fox. My Lord, that's, man, it's good to be Tom Brady. But a guy who's no longer a television analyst is Drew Brees. Apparently, he and NBC parted the ways. I'm not sure if they let him go. I'm not sure if he just left. I have no idea. But Drew Brees is no longer part of NBC Sports. And he put out a tweet yesterday, which is very, very interesting. Here it is. Drew Brees says, despite speculation from media about my future this fall, I'm currently undecided. I may work for NBC. I may play football again. I may focus on business and philanthropy. I may train for the pickleball tour, senior golf tour, coach my kids, or all the above. I'll let you know. So he's basically saying, like, okay, we'll see what happens in the future, but as it stands right now, not quite sure what my future holds. So I think the thing for Drew Brees, if he does want to come back for 2022, a Drew Brees optimist could say, well, he got a year off. And guys who get a year off tend to come back looking better than they did the year prior. The top of the list, I think of Rob Gronkowski, right? Gronk played in 2018, had played really well in the postseason, but the regular season, man, Gronk talked about it, man. Gronk is a fun-loving guy. But I saw an interview about him talking about that 2018 season before he retired for the first time, and the man was in tears about what the game was doing to his body. And playing the way Gronk plays, takes a lot of punishment. And so, but it wore the man down. It wore the man down. And so Drew Brees as well, it's not a situation where, like with Tom Brady, for example, like I made the case when Tom Brady retired for 40 days, but when he first retired, that this retirement actually adds to Tom's legacy, where he retires at the top of his game to where the legend of Tom Brady could still continue, and that we could say, hey, he could have gone even longer, but he walked away. Similar to Barry Sanders. Like Barry Sanders, I think Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time. Barry Sanders will retire and like, wait, that's it? You could still play? But he was done. Like that was it. Peyton Manning, on the other hand, Peyton goes from MVP in 2013, 2014, he throws 37 touchdown passes. In 2015, he throws 9 touchdown passes, 17 picks, and gets benched at midseason. Drew Brees gets hurt his last couple of years in the league. We saw 2018. Remember the 2018 season? The season infamously known as the one where the Saints got to the championship game. The infamous missed pass interference call. That season, Drew Brees was putting up MVP numbers. He was the leader over Patrick Mahomes. But then starting with a Thursday night game against the Cowboys, he really just faded away at that point. 2019, he gets hurt 2 games in, comes back, looks good. That playoff game against Minnesota, folks, was rough. Got outplayed by Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins can play. We know this, top 15, 16 quarterback, but Kirk Cousins isn't exactly known for playing big in big games. Well, that Sunday afternoon in New Orleans, he did. And Drew Brees was a shell of himself. And in 2020, what ended up being, to this point, his last season, it was rough sledding, man. I mean, we saw that game against Tampa, the playoff game, where he throws 4 picks. And Drew Brees, it almost looked like Tua in a way, where his ball seemed to, I always say, the ball seemed to die in the air. It isn't like Justin Herbert, to me, throws, as Josh Allen is the biggest arm in the league, Justin Herbert, to me, throws the prettiest deep ball in football. It is beautiful. It's just this perfect arc coming down. whether it's to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams or whoever it is, right? Drew Brees' ball would seem to come up like anytime he would try to get some mustard on it and just sort of flutter. If you lose the arm strength, if you lose the accuracy, which he did at the end of 2020, and Drew Brees was never known for being mobile. He moved well in the pocket, but he wasn't ever known for being mobile. And everybody's talking about, well, the Saints have done so many things this offseason. They just added Jarvis Landry the other day. Great pickup. They added Honey Badger, to go with their defense. They drafted Chris Olave out of Ohio State. Love Chris Olave. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player in this league. But when you talk about Sean Payton's not there, I'm a little skeptical of the Saints this season because as great of a defensive coordinator Dennis Allen is, we saw his first head coaching stop in Oakland with the Raiders, and it was pretty rough. Now, it is Oakland. Saints are a more well-run franchise, so we got to see how that plays out. But I think today, Jameis Winston's a better option. He's coming off an injury, but I'm telling you, man, Drew Brees' body flat out failed him in the end. And so why would I think that coming back now at the age of, 43 going on 44, that's going to change, that he's going to be in a better physical shape, better physical state to go out there and ball out this season? I can't do that. I love Drew, but I can't buy into this. And I think Jameis Winston's a better option today. So the NBA Conference Finals, 26 teams have had, and whatever hope they had for a championship, those hopes have been absolutely dashed. They're gone. 4 teams still have their hopes living and breathing. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals tips off tomorrow night in Miami. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals tips off Wednesday night in San Francisco. So in what will be, no question, 2 excellent series. I had a great first round predicting, which, let's be real, the first round is fairly easy to predict because you're talking a lot of mismatches with 1 seeds and 8 seeds especially. But second round, I was kind of rough. I picked Golden State over Memphis. That was not exactly a horribly difficult series to predict. I said that Miami would beat Philly, and then I went 0 for 2 in the next 2. I said that Boston would fall in 7 games against Milwaukee, and then I said that when it was all said and done, that the Suns would beat the Mavs in 7. But as John says right here, we got a new champion this season. New champion. It's going to be fun. There's no question about it. So, with that said, let's get the music going because we got a conference finals starting right now with the Eastern Conference Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. These teams have met in the Eastern Conference Finals twice in the last decade, back in 2012, which is a best-known series for the Miami Heat going down 3-2. LeBron still had yet to win a title. He comes back in Game 6, delivers one of the greatest performances in playoff history, dropped 45 in a blowout win over the Celtics. The Heat would go back to Miami and win in blowout fashion in Game 7 and go on to win the title over Oklahoma City. Then they met just a couple years ago in the Eastern Conference Finals in the bubble, in which Miami prevailed in 6 games. Just looked like the better team all the way around. There's no question about it. And so this is a very different series from those because, it's definitely different from 2012. It's similar in some ways to 2020, except that both teams are better than they were back then. What I do know, and what, myself, Barry talked about, this is going to be the most physical series in the postseason. We thought Milwaukee and Boston was? No. Boston's the best defense in basketball. Miami, without a question, is one of the top 5 defenses in basketball. I think they're the best defense in the playoffs at this point. Jimmy Butler, we know, he ain't scared of the moment. He said, Tobias Harris over me after Game 6, dethroning his old team, the Philadelphia 76ers. And he's got guys around him that are fearless. The question, I think, for the Miami Heat is, will Kyle Lowry be available? Right? As a distributor, at this point, you're not going to rely on Kyle Lowry like in his days in Memphis or in Toronto to be a consistent shot maker, to give you 20, 25 points a game. Can he be a good distributor? Can he give you some good minutes to the defensive end of the floor? That's going to be the question. But guys like Tyler Hero, Max Strus, great shooters. Does Duncan Robinson get minutes in what is going to be a physical series like this? I feel like last series was the one to play Duncan Robinson. This one, not so much. I feel like he's not going to get near as many clean looks as he did in the first 2 rounds against the Atlanta Hawks and against the Philadelphia 76ers. And Victor Oladipo is going to be huge too, with his scoring presence, with his ability to get steals in the defensive end of the floor. So that's going to be huge for the Miami Heat. For the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum, we know, is that guy. He's a superstar. There's no question about it. He has established himself as that. He has established himself as a top 10 player in the National Basketball Association. Jaylen Brown is a solid 2 in this league. You can constantly count on him to give you 25 a game. You know, he's got a great crossover mid-range jumper, a solid three-point jumper that can be up and down at times, a great handle, and certainly we know he can get to the rim without any problem. And Boston's deep with shooters as well. We're talking about guys like Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams. Bombed 7 threes, 7 for 18, not a great percentage, but again, he did hit the 7, which led the Celtics to 22 threes yesterday in Game 7 over the Bucks. So, both teams are deep. Matter of fact, Miami is deeper than Boston. The one concern, just like talked about with Barry, one concern I have about Miami is oftentimes, especially in road games, we saw this in Game 3 against Atlanta, the only game in that series they lost. We saw this in Games 3 and 4 against the Sixers. On the road, save for a couple of exceptions, it's really been Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, or bust. And even in some cases, Jimmy's been out here scoring 40, and Miami's still losing by double digits. Whereas you got Boston, who has taken their show on the road. You think about guys like Al Horford in Game 4. Guys like, obviously, Tatum showed up in that Game 6, but the other guys, following him. I feel like Boston is more equipped to take their show on the road because three-point shooting doesn't always travel. For whatever reason, it does with these Celtics, and certainly, defensively, it's pretty much a wash. So, 2 defensive coaches, Ime Udoka, Eric Spoelstra. This is going to be a beat-up, drag-out physical series. Miami has the home court advantage, which is huge. But Boston's shown an ability to go out there and win on the road. Swept Brooklyn. Went on the road and beat Milwaukee twice, including a do-or-die Game 6. In Game 4, they were down double digits the fourth quarter, came back, won the game. So we talk about Miami not being scared. You guys in Boston ain't scared either. So, with all that said, going to the NBA Finals and representing the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals will be the Boston Celtics in 6 games. They will close the series out in Boston at the TD Garden in front of a rowdy, raucous crowd in Boston, as is always the case. Again, for the reasons I just mentioned. Tatum, Butler, shot making, that's going to be a wash. Defensively, that's going to be a wash. But something else with Bam Adebayo, too. We know the defensive presence he gives. Offensively, he can give you 20, 25 points. Double-digit rebounds. He's a double-double machine. But Boston has the bodies to deal with Bam Adebayo. Philadelphia really didn't with him. When Embiid went to the bench, Adebayo had his way with the other bigs that they had on the floor. And so when I look at this, you have guys like Tice, Al Horford. Does Robert Williams, is he able to give you anything considering his injuries? That's a big question for the Celtics. I don't think he played yesterday, even though he was available to go, considering they blew out Milwaukee. So I'm taking the Boston Celtics to win the Eastern Conference, beat the Miami Heat in 6 games. It's going to be a phenomenal series without a question. Now moving on to the series that I'm really looking forward to. My Golden State Warriors taking on the Dallas Mavericks. The 3 seed versus the 4 seed. It's crazy. Top 2 seeds in the Western Conference don't even make it to the conference finals. Phoenix out via a Dallas 7-game series win. Memphis out via a Golden State 6-game series win. Again, when you're talking about Golden State and Dallas, you're talking about 2 teams that play very similar in some ways and then very different in others. Because in Golden State, you have more offensive threats. If Steph's not getting it going, because he struggled through the first 3 quarters in Game 6, Klay Thompson could show up. If Klay Thompson don't show up, Jordan Poole can show up. If not, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, as he did in the fourth quarter the other night, can make big shots. And Draymond Green, we know the facilitator and the defensive demon he is, on that side of the floor. When we talk about the depth, guys like Otto Porter, is he ready to go in this series? Unfortunately, it would be a basketball miracle if Gary Payton is able to make things happen and suit up for the series. Kevon Looney, The man grabbed 22 rebounds in that closeout against Memphis in Game 6. The fact that they out-rebounded a much bigger team and a team that led the league in rebounding throughout the regular season is a matter of heart. People don't want to hear about stuff like that. It isn't, heart isn't shown in analytics. There's no stat for it. But heart. Golden State won the basketball off missed shots more than Memphis did. Some of that is also their length. Draymond's a very long defensive player, as is Andrew Wiggins. The debate for this series is, who's the best player? I'd say the majority say Luka. I'm in the camp of Steph. We're going to find out, because I think both guys are going to be played very similarly. Luka Doncic, we know what this man represents. In the postseason, statistically, he's one of the greatest players of all time. He's putting up numbers similar to LeBron and Michael. That's good company, folks, especially in elimination games. So the thing is with the Dallas Mavericks is we know what they bring to the defensive end of the floor. They're probably a slightly better defensive team than Golden State. But again, Game 7 was more of an exception because on the road, especially against the Suns, Games 1, 2, and 5 in Phoenix, those role players in Dallas struggled. Phoenix would win on an average of 19 points a game. That's why part of the reason last night was so shocking in Game 7. Brunson at times got schooled by Devin Booker. Dinwiddie, a lot of times he wouldn't have his shot falling. So, Golden State, similar to Miami, the only two teams in the playoffs left who have not lost a home game in the postseason. And so I think Game 1 is going to be a blowout in favor of Golden State just for the simple fact they have more rest. Dallas is having to travel once again. And so this is going to be not as physical series as Boston, Miami, but certainly a knockout, drag-out series. A lot of shot-making, a lot of offense. And at the end of the day, if it is a shot-making type of series, at the end of the day, y'all know who I'm going with. The team that I had winning the NBA Finals last August, the Golden State Warriors, via a 6-game series win. I think it's going 6, and here's why. Golden State takes care of home court. I believe that. I believe Golden State wins the first 2 at home. Everybody overreacts and said, oh, here we go, sweep city. Dallas comes back, games 3 through 4. They'll take those 2. Luka will probably have a 40-piece in one of those 2 because, at the end of the day, there's not much you can do to stop Luka Doncic, certainly when he gets in the lane, when he gets in the paint, with that floater game, with spin moves, ball handling, fade away. I mean, he's got it all. He's got it all in his bag. The series will shift back to Golden State where the Warriors will win a close Game 5, and they'll win a game in Game 6 that they probably shouldn't because that's what this dynasty has done since 2015. I think about Game 1 against the Memphis Grizzlies. Draymond gets a bogus flagrant 2 call and gets ejected. And Golden State still comes back from double digits down with the Splash Brothers struggling. And they win the basketball game. So I think Game 6 is going to be similar in that way. And my Golden State Warriors will take the Western Conference over the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. So it's going to be fun. This is going to be a fun conference finals. I got both series going 6. And I believe we're going to get a Boston Golden State NBA Finals. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be fun. Right now, as it stands, Miami is a 1.5. Wow, I'm surprised it's only that much. Only a 1.5 point favorite over Boston. I'm going to take Miami to win Game 1. Again, similar for the reasons I'm taking Golden State to win Game 1. Miami is more rested. Things of that nature. So, and Boston just came off a hard-fought series over, a guy who is arguably the best player in the world in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and having to battle back down 3-2 to win that series. Miami's been sitting back watching. So I think Miami takes Game 1, probably close, but they'll take Game 1 at home. Game 1, Golden State is favored -5 over Dallas at home. Again, I would bet the over, and that I'd say probably be a 15-point win, a little bit similar to Game 6. Dallas will compete for a while in the first half, but we'll see, especially with Steve Kerr coming back, we'll see sort of a vintage Golden State Warriors third quarter avalanche. Because a lot of people are taking Dallas. I understand why they're taking Dallas. Certainly a team that could win the series without a question. And when we know what Luka Doncic represents. But similar to the Memphis Grizzlies. And look, Dallas is way better than Memphis. Let's get that clear. They're way better than Memphis. But similar to the Memphis Grizzlies, even though this will be a harder series for my Warriors, Luka has balled out against the Clippers twice, the Jazz, the Suns, and he's going to get his. These Dallas Mavericks, this is an avalanche they're running into. This is something different they run into. They run into a dynasty. And my Golden State Warriors, since 2015, they've been in 5 Western Conference Finals, this being the 6th. They are foreign to the idea of losing a conference finals because they ain't never done it. And that's going to happen once again. NBA Finals bound. Golden State Warriors. Here we go. Let's do it. All right. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. I'm going to take a little hiatus. Gonna take a little time spent with family. And so, but don't worry. No shows on Thursday, Friday, or Monday. So I'm gonna be gone for a little while. But don't worry. I'm gonna be making some videos. Certainly, I'm gonna be all over Twitter talking about these conference finals and all over Instagram doing the same. So I'll still be in the loop. I'll be back next Thursday. It's gonna be fun. Hopefully by then my Warriors will be in the NBA Finals and not having to play Game 6. If so, it is what it is. But I feel very confident about my team's chances of not only winning the West, but winning the finals, as I said last summer. So have a great week. Have a great, few weeks until we meet again. Be sure to check out Carving Up Live, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter. Again, next Thursday, taking a little break. And be sure to catch up the Carving Up podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Also on those podcasting platforms, episode 5 of the Carving It Up U.S. President's Edition is available now. I want to go check that out. Obviously, the highlight, the main event, if you will, of this episode is one of my favorite presidents in the history of this great country is Theodore Roosevelt. But plenty of other colorful characters, William McKinley as well. So be sure to check out episode 5 of the Carving Up U.S. President's Edition. Myself, Isaac Lawson, and episode 6. Even though we will be gone from the show for a little while, episode 6 will be available Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Pacific time on our regular podcasting platform, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor. So, and on YouTube, by the way. Be sure to catch it on YouTube as well. So, until we meet again next Thursday, have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great couple of weeks. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Dubs in 6. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.